This week in Pure Reinvention.
We really have challenged the thought process of a board as not a review and approval, but a going out ahead with our CEO and creating the vision and helping our paid staff get where we want to go.
Episode 129, Deanna Richeson, President and CEO, and Cindy Bowen, Chairman of the Board, Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. I'm here with my co-host, Sonia Robinson. And Sonia, this podcast had a little different feel to it, didn't it?
It sure did. There were two interviewed in this one along with you.
You know, that is, as we go along and as we add these new dynamics, it's really something interesting to listen to the feedback, because the feedback is always, what drives us to even kind of capture the next new idea. There's some really nice feedback out of being able to have a little bit more of a robust conversation with a little bit larger group. That's, I think, something that our listeners will probably hear a little bit more of in the future, won't they?
Yes.
So Cindy and Deanna had a really good working dynamic, and what they introduced us to was, even when we discussed the filling of the CEO role, there was comments made that kind of talked about how important getting the right CEO was.
In filling the seat, they weren't just looking for somebody with a skill, but they were looking for someone that was going to provide that differentiation and help to lead the organization.
The organization had identified that differentiation was extremely important to their quantum growth phase. They were very diligent about engaging an outside resource in order to help them through that phase. This individual provided great leadership to them in finding Deanna, but it wasn't by mistake, was it, Sonia? That was a very purposeful intention.
Definitely, it was purposeful.
And in the comment that was discussed that I really had some meaning to me, Sonia, because I think it's really important for us to learn more about, and that's how important it is that the association be ahead of its members.
Yes, that really sparked my interest, and I can't wait to listen to the interview to hear that once more.
So let's listen now.
This week's episode is sponsored by MB Strategies. MB Strategies focuses on your success and provides you with sustainable results by identifying opportunities, guiding you through implementation, and navigating you to greater results. Contact MB Strategies today at mbstrategiesllc.com to start your reinvention journey.
I'm so excited to be here today with Deanna Richeson, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association, and Cindy Bowen, who is the chair of that awesome association and is also the general manager of the Crown Plaza, a very successful hotel in the Lansing area. Ladies, it is a pleasure for me to be here in the company of two individuals who are so accomplished. I respect both of you greatly, and I appreciate you doing this podcast. Cindy, I want to start with you because the story of the phase 2 of the Michigan Lodging and Tourism started with you chairing the selection committee to find the next chief executive officer, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And can you share with our listeners your role as the chair, what you were really focused on making sure we accomplished during that phase?
We were looking to find an individual truly that was not from the association world in particular, that didn't come with an expectation of how an association looked or behaved, but someone who had great energies and open vision and ideas and willingness to make change.
And Deanna, you were looking for an employer that had some magic to it as well, weren't you?
I sure was.
And what kind of magic were you looking for?
I looked back at what I enjoyed most in my career and realized that what I was looking for was an employer who had faced a disruption of some sort and was looking to create an innovative response to that. So an opportunity where I could really make a difference and craft something that would be innovative.
Now, Cindy, at the time, they had shared with you that the board and the organization had already gone through a strategic planning exercise. So they were already preparing themselves for you, for your arrival. Can you tell us, when you saw that document, what that document said to you in terms of the board's expectations of your role?
The board was expecting quantum growth. So big growth in a very short period of time.
And Cindy, as the chair, the board had gone through this exercise of doing some strategic planning and had, in a couple of years prior to Deanna coming, had started on its path of creating quantum growth. In fact, it had doubled revenue during the 3 or 4 years prior to Deanna coming on board. Why was it important for the board to see the continued quantum growth take place?
We needed to be able to provide services and value to our members. And we had struggled with that for a while. Our membership base has changed and evolved. So that means that the association has to change and evolve ahead of its members to provide value.
I really like that idea that the association has to evolve ahead of its members. What did you, Cindy, see in Deanna that told you this was an individual that could help the association see ahead for its members?
Well, we saw a tremendous spark in this lady and a creative thought process, a hard, a great work ethic. We knew she was going to put the time and energy into it, and absolutely came with outside the box type of thinking. Didn't come in making recommendations of this is what I've done in the past and the way I think it should be. She was very open to throwing new ideas at us and challenging us to give her the permission to head down that pathway, or the support. I don't even want to say permission, but the support to head down that pathway.
And you said that while smiling and very respectful of the individual that you're sitting next to. Deanna, you had an opportunity to evaluate your potential future employer and to evaluate the selection committee, evaluate the expectations. And there was a message in there for you, wasn't there?
There sure was. At this point in my career, I was in a position to really choose who it was that I wanted to work with. Was the fit a right fit? And so through the selection process and a couple of opportunities to sit with the selection committee, which included a number of the executive committee board members, I could see that this really was a group of individuals who were thought leaders in their industry and who had already been through a couple of years of planning for this change and who would really support what they were putting out there.
So now, Deanna, 1 year later from you selecting this group to be the place where you spent this next phase of your career, you have aggressively started to initiate opportunities to continue this quantum growth path that the association has started on. From your perspective as the president and chief executive officer, what kinds of leadership opportunities do you see it important that an association leader bring to its membership?
To be effective in responding to an opportunity for quantum growth, any kind of change in looking at, as Cindy said, being ahead of industry and what the industry's needs are to deliver value and exceed expectations by our members. You need to be a listener. You need to be someone who will get out and engage your industry, stakeholders, have vision, and look for opportunities, look for what the needs are, and put that into an executable plan.
Deanna, do you feel like you're a little bit of a pioneer in that the direction that you're going is a brand new space, that it's yours to define?
I do, and I love it. I didn't realize when I started out how much of a pioneer, not just me, but this board is incredible, and how different this board is from other association boards. They're very, very supportive. They ask tough questions. They shepherd in their role the the responsibilities that the board has for the direction of the association, this organization is very different from most associations.
Cindy, you are now chairing this organization who is initiating quantum growth, as Deanna talked about, kind of pioneering this next phase, right? Writing the book for associations rather than following the book. How do you see your role as the board chair in helping the board in total support the vision of the executive?
My role is to remind us of the commitment we made to our new CEO and president, to help, I would say, sell the risks that we're taking or support what we need to do and the behavior changes that we need to make. I've been thinking about this, Mike, and we're all used to the outcomes we'll get from behaviors that we've practiced in the past. So now these new behaviors, we're not quite sure of those outcomes, and that takes a risk. We're taking risks financially, but they're managed risk, and we're taking risks in the behaviors and expectations we're asking for from our board members and executive committee. So the outcomes are a little unknown. That is what excites me as an individual, and I just need to champion for our CEO and just keep reminding us of what we committed to do.
So Cindy, share with us some of your experiences to date with helping the board manage this new risk financially, and especially this new risk with how you're helping other board members as they modify their behaviors and their roles in order to support this new initiative.
Well, we committed to an additional full-time position for membership development. That was something, frankly, we had talked about probably 8-10 years, and we just didn't put our money where our thought was. And in the other areas that we're asking the board members to take ownership of visioning and developing connections and relationships to our members and our potential membership base versus the behavior of managing the financial, if you will, or managing the processes of the paid staff. So they're owning the visioning. So we've gone to more committee models as well, and some 5 to 6 targeted areas that we need to make change and see growth to hit our quantum financial goals.
So clearly you are helping the board focus more on owning the next phase and the behavioral changes that are necessary to achieve that. And it sounds like you're staying out of the operational detail that historically a board might have been involved with in the past.
Yeah, very well said. As I heard you, I'm sitting here thinking we, go to meetings and we were looking more historically.
Right.
Yes, you have to keep your eye and your pulse on the finances, but we were doing too much historical review and evaluation. And if that would be the biggest switch, absolutely, is looking forward down the road and what habits and behaviors do we need to implement to get us where we want to go versus looking in the rearview mirror.
And how are you helping board members who may be struggling with that transition? How are you yourself reaching out to those board members that you can see need a little bit of assistance, and how are you assisting them through that transition?
Certainly, as the chair, I have to have confidence.
Yes.
And I have to have a conviction to it. And I have to, Deanna and I are spending a lot of time together, whether she likes that or not. So it's a personal sacrifice to some degree and commitment. I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice because I get a lot out of it. So I would say it's a personal and professional commitment that I've made. So I think just like when you're leading a team in your business, if they see you committed to it and passionate about it and you're all in, and they respect your knowledge and your ability, they'll follow.
So you are the role model for the rest of the board, that as they see your behavior shifting and changing, that allows them to shift and change and follow your lead, as you are the one that's made the commitment number one, and then they can follow. So Deanna, if now that you've kind of heard Cindy's take on how the board is owning this next phase of quantum growth, where they're supporting the vision and creating the resources necessary, operationally, you have to be a good steward of those intentions. And so how are you synchronizing your operational focus with the environment that Cindy has created at the board level?
Yes. Well, first of all, I would say that it is a tremendous privilege that Cindy has made this personal and professional commitment. It's a privilege and really something that's helped me grow tremendously as well. As Cindy and I get together a couple of times a month, we just pull away from the daily push and pull of our jobs to sit down and vision what it is that this phenomenal association can be. What's the vision? Are we on track? We're laying out some expectations on a quarterly basis of where we should be as an association and as a board. I take that and I put it into execution timelines and figure out what the resources are that we need to have to be able to implement that vision.
And Cindy, as you look at recruiting new board members onto the board team, how do you see this new momentum helping you recruit the kinds of board members to support this quantum growth?
Mike, actually, recruitment of our board members has been a specific dialogue and an intentional thought that Deanna and the executive committee have talked about. We're looking for diversity in so many ways, but diversity in context of this conversation would be individuals with a diversified thought process, a little more comfort with probably stepping outside of traditional boundaries. And sometimes we've even talked very specifically as a board member of running this, our role on the board in this organization is more like we run our business back when we're in our paid positions. We really have challenged the thought process of a board as not a review and approval, but a going out ahead with our CEO and creating the vision and helping our paid staff get where we want to go.
Cindy, how important is it that the board and the marketplace, the membership, see you and the executive, the president, the chairman, and the CEO seamless in your vision? And how important is that in the momentum to get to your quantum growth, that seamless vision between those two key leaders?
I think it's priceless. You've hit on something for me, Mike, even as a person who runs my own business and leads my own team. If there's a breakdown at key levels like that, it compromises your progress. It compromises the commitment of the team members when they see an inconsistency in beliefs or values or practice. So Deanna and I actually, and working together last year, have kind of teased each other about we may have to help each other pace just a little bit,
right?
Because we're both individuals that really want to put more on our plate and get a lot done in a short period of time. It is a great thing, but I think that's even a good thing between the two of us because we're able to just kind of help pace a little bit.
So from your perspective, Deanna, is there any end in sight to the opportunity that quantum growth brings with that kind of an attitude?
There is no end in sight, and that's what's exciting about it.
Cindy, from your perspective, do you see an end in sight to quantum growth when you can have such synchrony and openness between the board and the marketplace opportunities? Can you see a limitation here?
No limitations at all.
And so
great opportunity.
So the two of you just need to continually be synchronized together to make sure that these two great engines from the board perspective and from the operational perspective, you're constantly in harmony so that quantum growth becomes a very achievable reality. Cindy, any final thoughts on an association that might be considering moving in this direction and the advice that you would give them on the excitement that goes with being the board chair in a quantum growth phase?
It's extremely important as the board chair when you want to make quantum growth changes and reinvent your organization and the future successes of it, that as the board chair and with your CEO, you ask the tough question, do we have board members that are willing to do this, committed to do this, and want to? And if not, that's where you really need to make some tough decisions and look at redefining, as you said, Mike, that question, what to look for in future board members, because it won't happen if you don't have members who are comfortable and willing to make those changes.
Deanna, advice to any association executive that's ready for quantum growth?
My advice would be to sit down with your board chair and your executive committee, have open conversation, make sure that you can come together on an aligned vision and work together to look at where your industry is calling for you to be.
All sorts of opportunities when an industry is ready. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So, Sonia, as we had a chance to listen to that really, really good interview, which I do agree with you, the dynamic of having three people in the conversation was very different than two. What we started to learn about how Deanna was selected and what the board expected from the CEO all of a sudden started to change the entire forecast for growth for the association. So you had heard a number of things that the CEO, the new hire, had prioritized in order to kind of set a new stage. What were those things, Sonia?
The association has to change and evolve ahead of its members to provide value. That means that, to me, I heard that the association needs to be the leader. It also needs to be taking a scan of the environment to understand what that next opportunity could or should be. And having some background conversation with Deanna, I can coin her as being the turnaround queen, because that's what she's done for many other organizations that she's worked with in her past prior to being with MLTA. And so it's kind of interesting to be able to follow her journey from this point forward, understanding that there were some good successes with MLTA before she came in and how she's going to be able to take that even further with her characteristics and behaviors.
Now, none of that, Sonia, is possible without having a good boss. Cindy Bowen, who is chair of the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association Board of Directors, she indeed plays a vital role in making sure that executive and those characteristics you just described have a safe home and can do their work well. Cindy told us some things that were the board responsibility that need to fit into that as well, didn't she?
In fact, she said that their responsibility, or her responsibility as a board chair, was to remind the board of the commitment that they've made to the new CEO and president to support the behavior changes that were needed to make that quantum growth.
So let's talk about that for a minute. The organization, through the encouragement of both the chief executive officer as well as the chairman of the board, is reminding the business on a constant basis we have to change behaviors in order to get different outcomes.
We always have to keep that vision ahead of us in order to reach it and achieve it. And if we're not talking about it, then how else will we make that accomplishment?
Many times we see a executive who has that vision, but maybe not supported by a board of directors, or perhaps we have a board of directors that wants to do it, but maybe isn't in partnership with the chief executive officer. In the case of Deanna and Cindy, in their respective roles with the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association, the exciting journey here is that both of those key executives are in harmony. They both have forecasted and have an expectation of quantum growth. They have both understand the quantum growth expectation, and they are both talking about the behavioral changes that are necessary to support such an aggressive agenda. So if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.